Jai Gurudev. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Chaiva Tato Jayamudirayet. Yeah, let's share our input of chapter 10 and then we'll go on to Atma bodha. I think the most important input for us as seekers from chapter 10 is that number one, we understand that everything that is all the glory and otherwise also that is there in creation is nothing but manifestation of the Brahman. And when we look at things around with this angle, it frees us from getting jealous of others. Like if there is a good singer, if there's a person who's speaking well or who's beautiful, when you look at that as the glory of the Lord, then automatically it will prevent that little bit of jealousy that might spring up otherwise. So instead of comparing yourself with others, you will just revel in the in the bliss that all that belongs to um, Bhagavan. That is one. And second, it will also make sure that your ego is also under check. Supposing you yourself have some good quality or some virtue, instead of your ego getting bloated, you will attribute that as um, the vibhuti of the Lord. So both ways, either your ego or feeling jealous of others, both are taken care of. Anybody else wants to share before we go to Atma bodha?
Hari Om. Today Nanaji summarized very well. That was very, very nicely. I mean, the jealousy part, wherever you see anything good or anything glorious, we have to attribute it to the Vibhuti, including our own self, our own surrounding, our own people or other people. Wherever you see, it is His glory only. So just gratitude and the devotion that everywhere, I mean, every particle is Him only. Hari Om.
Jai Gurudev, as Brahmaraji and Belaji said, it is true. And when you feel that you don't have that quality, then it's as good as you're stealing it, trying to steal it. So that will hamper our growth, I think. Jai Gurudev.
Yeah, yesterday night in Panini grammar class, 7-year-old boy was explaining Panini grammar, And for a fraction of moment, I was so much in awe of that God is such a, His creation is so marvelous that at such a young age, He has that inner depth of such a abstract, think, which even as adult, it was difficult to recognize or recall or even to understand. And He was so effortlessly explaining the stanza. So that time I really remembered that it is just His glory and it is His past janmas. He has uh, brought it forward in this present janma. Hari Om.
Yeah, we are in verse 26. Let me just share the. Yeah. So the plan will be to have Manana for till 6 o'clock. That is the till maybe for half an hour, and then we'll chant chapter 1 and 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. आत्मनो विक्रिया नास्ति बुद्धिर्बोधो न जात्विति जीवः सर्वमलं ज्ञात्वा ज्ञाता द्रष्टेति मुह्यति आत्मनः for the self vikriya action na asti not is buddhi for the intellect bodha capacity to experience or intelligence na not jatu at all iti thus jo jivaha the individuality sarvam everything alam enough jnatva knowing jnata the knower drashta the seer iti thus muhyati deludes. Atman never does anything, and the intellect of its own accord has no capacity to experience. I know, but the individuality in us delusorily thinks he is himself the seer and the knower. Human intellect by itself is not endowed with the powers of feeling, thinking, willing, or wishing because it is a product of matter which is inert and insentient. A bulb in itself has no light without it being wedded to the electric current. Atman is knowledge itself, and it is not affected by the mental thoughts and physical actions. The individuality, jiva, which is a reflection of the pure consciousness in the mind, in its ignorance, avidya, of its true nature, falsely identifies itself with the body, mind, intellect equipment. And it comes to superimpose the characteristics of the true self on these insentient matter envelopments. In this way, the delusion that one is a seer, knower, etc., arises in the ego, all because of a false notion in himself. The substratum for all these changing phenomena is that changeless Atman. This world of plurality with different names and forms seems to rise and fall like waves on the ocean. It is an illusion experienced upon that substratum, Adhisthana, painted by the fancy of the confused ego. Just as the waves are in and of the ocean only, and they do not stand even for a moment apart from the oceanic waters, so also the entire waves of creation is in and of that Absolute Supreme and have no separate existence in themselves. This Supreme Being is the Atman who stands ever unaffected in the least by the changes caused in the arena of time, space, and causality. The illuminating consciousness, because of which there is an awareness of the various objects and activities of the inner mind, is that supreme reality. Thus, though waves after waves of sorrow, rejection, despair, joy, success, anger, jealousy, or passion may come in the mind, he who knows the knower of these waves is not affected by them. Why should the sun dim because of the tragedies he is illumining, or glow the brighter where he is illumining a joyous scene? The self I am illumining my mental conditions. I know I am happy or unhappy. But these are the mental waves that I am illumining. I am the light of consciousness. None of the conditions of the mind is me. This is the constant wisdom of the wise man. This last paragraph I'm going to read once again. So, though waves after waves of sorrow, rejection, despair, joy, success, anger, jealousy, or passion may come in the mind, he who knows the knower of these waves is not affected by them. Why should the sun dim because of the tragedies he is illumining, or glow the brighter where he is illumining a joyous scene? The self I am illumining my mental conditions. I know I am happy or unhappy, but these are the mental waves that I am illumining. I am the light of consciousness. None of the conditions of the mind is me. This is the constant wisdom of the wise man. Rajju sarpavadatmanam jivo jnatva bhayam vahet naham jiva paratmeti jnatashve nirbhayo bhavet. Rajju sarpavat, like a serpent in a rope, Atmanam, oneself, Jivaha, the ego, Jnatva, considering, Bhayam, fear, Vahet, carries or is overcome, Na, not, Aham, I, Jivaha, individuality or the ego, Paratma, the supreme self, Iti, thus, Jnataha, having understood, Chet, if, Nirbhayaha, fearless, Bhavet, can be. Just as the person who regards a rope as a snake is overcome by fear, so also one considering oneself as the ego, jiva, is overcome by fear. The egocentric individuality in us regains fearlessness by realizing that it is not a jiva but is itself the supreme soul. The superimposition of a snake vision on a row takes place only when the existence of the row is not perceived. Once a misapprehension starts, it multiplies itself in its own imaginations into 1,000 baseless notions, and the individual, under his own delusions, suffers the consequences thereof. Just as the vision of the snake gives us perceptions of the details of the snake, the pain of its bite, the fear of the death that will be caused by the snake on the rope. In the non apprehension of the self, the misapprehension of the gross physical body, mind, etc., are perceived as real. And in this misunderstanding, the confused ego is born to suffer its own illusory sorrows. We are not the limited individuality as we take ourselves to be. There is a limitless region of experience beyond what is known at present. And this is shut out from us because of our self centered existence. When the realization of the true nature of the self comes to one, even as mere theoretical knowledge, he who was till then in a perpetual state of fear and sorrow seems to wake up from his own limited existence and rediscovers himself to be the blissful self which is all pervading and eternal. If and when thereafter there is an outward cognition of any experience, such a Mahatman of self realization cannot but see the same matter equipments of experiences which were before his own, singing the eternal song of life. So, what is reassuring here is Swamiji says, even if it is only an intellectual uh, that when the realization of the true self, true nature of the self comes to one, even as mere theoretical knowledge, he who was till then in a perpetual state of fear and sorrow seems to wake up from his own limited existence and rediscovers himself to be the blissful self, which is all pervading and eternal. So, what we all have right now is a theoretical knowledge. It's an uh, paroksha jnana. It is not aparoksha jnana. It has still not become our complete experience. It's only a theoretical knowledge that we know that the self is beyond all of this. So even that is useful to bring us to a state of fearlessness. Although the more we contemplate upon that state, ultimately we rediscover it. Atma vabhasayateko buddhyadinendriyanyapi deepo ghatadivat svatma jadaistairnavabhasyate. Atma, the self, avabhasayati, illumines, ekaha, single, buddhyadini, intellect, etc., indriyani, sense organs, api, also, deepaha, lamp, ghatadivat, like the pots, etc., svatma, itself, jadaihi, inert, taihi, by themselves, na, not, avabhasyate, illumined. Just as a lamp illumines a jar or pot, so also the Atman illumines the mind and the sense organs, etc. These material objects by themselves cannot illumine themselves because they are inert. The street lamp is a silent, unperturbed witness of all that happens under its light. Whether it is a marriage procession or a funeral march, the light, unmoved by the feelings of joy or sorrow, sheds its glow on all those that come under it. The postman is unconcerned with the nature and contents of the communication he delivers to the addressee. In fact, we ourselves are unconcerned with the different experiences of a co passenger when we get into a train or bus, and we never consider his loss or gain as our own. Although we may sympathize with his lot and help him, the sorrow is only illumined by us. The self in us is the one illuminating factor, the pure awareness which alone illumines both the good and the bad in us at all times. What mind does not comprehend, but what makes the mind cognize, know that to be Brahman and not what people worship, says the Upanishad, the one power on account of which the physical activities and the mental yearnings and intellectual throbbings become vivid and living for us. The matter combinations may vary in their endless variety, in their strength, vitality, and energy, but the one spirit which through all these different manifestations of matter does not change at all is the one and only glory which gives the glitter of a show to the entire Jagat. A lively show indeed. If anyone wants to share anything, please unmute and share. स्वबोधेनान्यबोधे च बोधरूपतयात्मनः न दीपस्यान्यदीपे च यथा स्वात्मप्रकाशने. So for the what is that? What mind does not comprehend, but what makes the mind cognize, know that to be Brahman and not what people worship. So for that, refer to Swamiji's discourses on Kenopanishad. Okay. Svabodhe, to know itself, no, not. Anya bodhecha, need for other knowledge. Bodha rupataya, because its form is knowledge itself. Atmanaha, one's own. Na, not. Deepasya, for a lamp. Anya deepecha, need for another lamp. Yatha, just as. Swatma prakashane, to illumine itself. A lighted lamp does not need another lamp to illumine its light. So too, Atman, which is knowledge itself, needs no other knowledge to know it. Light is necessary to see the furniture in the dark room of a house. But to see the very light which illumines the furniture, do we require any other light? We do not call for the aid of any other light to see the very sun that illumines all the objects in the world, because the sun itself is illumination complete. To understand, realize, and experience the self, the illuminating light in all our experiences, in fact, in all beings at all times, no other light is necessary, because this self alone is the real, and this self alone lights up the knowledge of the entire creation, known and unknown. This self is the all-awareing consciousness absolute. If we remove the furniture, etc., from the presence of the light does not cease to exist. Similarly, even if all the objects in this world if all our experiences in the waking, dream, and deep sleep states have ended, even then the awareness shall keep on shining as ever before, because the Atman is eternal and self effulgent. To know this source of all light, no other light is necessary. The outer world of objects is illumined as long as I am extrovert. The moment I turn inward and my attention is introvert, I realize that that light alone is the real one, which illumines the entire experiences everywhere, not only in my own bosom, but in the entire world of beings. Whatever be the technique which we adopt, we are bound to realize this reality if we faithfully follow the path laid down by the learned sages and experienced seers. The intellect cannot comprehend the one homogeneous whole because it is not an object of cognition. With a telescope, I cannot see myself. I can see only other objects in front of me and round about me. Similarly, so long as the intellect is there, it is indeed very useful to discriminate, to reason out, to analyze, and to understand the objects and happenings in a field other than the intellect itself. Now, when we try to understand the transcendental truth with that limited intellect in an objective way, the intellect is only trying to achieve the impossible and the impracticable, as the self is the subject that illumines the very intellect itself. The gross body is an object of experience. The subtle mind is something separate from and subtler than this gross equipment. The intellect is still subtler, and yet, even this also is an object experienced by us. When we thus move more and more into the inward chambers in ourselves, we almost reach the subtlest of the thought existence, the intellectual field for the play of our ideas and ideologies, such as I know, I understand, etc. When these thought waves sleep down, when there is nothing for the consciousness to illumine, at that rare and sacred moment, the pure consciousness alone remains, illumining itself as a silent street lamp at midnight stands illumining itself. In terms of the familiar analogy of the dreamer is none other than the waker. As the dreamer himself, when he wakes up from his dream, rediscovers himself to be the waker. So too, in the supreme plane of self awareness and bliss, when all duality has ended therein, when I remain in my own real nature to understand, realize, and experience that bliss of self, Swarupananda. No other illumination is necessary. It is a question of one awakening oneself to that state of God consciousness, the selfhood. I think we will stop Atma Bodh here today. We've got to start from shloka number 30 tomorrow. Anyone wants to share anything before we begin Bhagavad Gita chanting?
Hariom Brahmaraji, that roadmap aspect, did we?
No, that is not yet shared yet. That has to be written down.
Yeah,
Let
and
me see.
maybe take the help of Puja Nana ji also, because it is very
Yes,
important how we.
yes, correct. What we'll do is once we put it down on paper, we'll share it with Nana as well, and then we can get some. Why we get it fine tuned.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Dhanyavad.
Yeah.
Because right now antakaran shuddhi is the main aspect, and it has it has brought to that stage where you see everything glorious around you. And this is I'm sure everyone must be feeling the same, as long as we are in this path. So it is we have to really work on our roadmap, even for our future also, not a very long future, but for the next birth I'm talking about. And not to worry about it, but
Here,
without
our
worrying.
Percy Bhaiya also can little bit give his inputs, because he has come across the real cross section of all so many souls around, and teaching this for so long. He can help us to chalk out this planning also.
Yes,
Roadmap.
very much for that advanced course. If he's ready for that advanced course online, if we can work out even for that.
Because when this Atma bodha knowledge and Bhagavad Gita knowledge is going on, in alignment with that, when we do the advanced course, its impact is altogether very, 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 very different.
Yes,
So
fully
if he agrees for online AMP, well and good, but at least we can ask him for helping us in chalking out the roadmap. We can ask that to Percy Bhaiya also, to give his inputs.
Yeah, I think he's there. I'm not sure whether Percy ji is there. He's able to speak. I think he's not there. Okay. I'm trying to get the Gita Press uh, Bhagavad Gita, so that's easier for us to chant. Are you all okay with the Sanskrit version, or any of you requires the English version as well?
I believe Sanskrit is perfect.
Sanskrit is fine, right? Let me see. Just give me 1 second, yeah? I have the Bhagavad Gita Swamiji's. I'm trying, not able to retrieve the Bhagavad Gita Gita Press. The Gita Press thing is easier. Okay, we'll start with should we start with Gita Dhyanam and then go on with the chapter 1? I think we'll start with Gita Dhyanam. Anybody wants to chant? Okay. Om पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणी भगवती अष्टादशाध्यायिनी अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे फुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्रः येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सस्तुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम् भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणनधी कैवर्तकः केशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलम् गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटम् नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम् लोके सज्जनषट्पदैरहरहः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद्भारतपङ्कजं कलिमल प्रध्वंसि न श्रेयसे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः अथ श्रीमद्भगवद्गीता प्रथमोऽध्यायः अर्जुन विषादयोगः धृतराष्ट्र उवाच धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेतायुयुत्सवः मामकाः पाण्डवाश्चैव किमकुर्वत सञ्जय यत्र योगेश्वर कृष्णो यत्र पार्थो धनुर्धरः तत्र श्रीविजयो भूतिः ध्रुवा नीतिर्मतिर्मम संजय उवाच
Brahmaraji, if you
दृष्ट्वा
can read,
yeah.
huh?
Yeah. You want to continue, Vaila?
Yeah, I can read.
Yeah. Don't strain yourself. Let me know. I can read, no problem. I can chant.
No problem. I can read from my, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
Sanjay उवाच दृष्ट्वा तु पाण्डवानीकं व्यूढं दुर्योधनस्तदा आचार्यमुयसङ्गम्य राजा वचनमब्रवीत् पश्येतां पाण्डुपुत्राणाम् आचार्यं महतिं चमुं व्यूढां द्रुपदपुत्रेण तव शिष्येण धीमता अत्र शूरा महेश्वासा भीमार्जुनसमायुधि युयुधानो विराटश्च द्रुपदश्च महारथः दृष्टकेतुश्चेकितानः काशीराजश्च वीर्यवान् पुरुजित कुन्तिभोजश्च शैवव्यश्च पुङ्गवः यूधामन्युश्च विक्रान्त उत्तमौजाश्च वीर्यवान् सौभद्रो द्रौपदेयाश्च सर्व एव महारथाः 11,000 योधयेद्यस्तु धन्विनां शस्त्रशास्त्रप्रवीणश्च महारथ इति स्मृतः अमितान् योधयेद्य अस्तु सम्प्रोक्तो तीरथस्तु सः रथस्त्वेकेन यो योद्धा तन्न्यूनोर्धरथ स्मृतः अस्माकं तु विशिष्टाये तात्रिबोधद्विजोत्तम नायका मम सैन्यस्य संज्ञार्थं तान् ब्रवीमि ते भवान् भीष्मश्च कर्णश्च कृपश्च समितिञ्जयः अश्वत्थामा विकर्णश्च सौमदत्तिर्जयद्रथः अन्ये च बहवः शूरा मदर्थे त्यक्तजीविताः नानाशस्त्रप्रहरणाः सर्वे युद्धविशारदाः अपर्याप्तं तदस्माकं बलं भीष्माभिरक्षितं पर्याप्तं त्विदमेतेषां बलं भीमाभिरक्षितम् अयनेषु च सर्वेषु यथा भागमवस्थिताः भीष्ममेवाभिरक्षन्तु भवन्तः सर्व एव हि तस्य सञ्जनयर्हर्षं कुरु वृद्धः पितामहः सिंहनादं विनद्योऽङ्गे सिंहनादं
द्यौञ्चेह शङ्खं दद्मौ प्रतापवान् ततः शङ्खाश्च भैर्यश्च पणवानकगोमुखाः सहसैवाभ्यहन्यन्त सशब्दस्तुमुलोऽभवत् ततः श्वेतैर्हर्यैर्युक्ते महति स्यन्दने स्थितौ माधवः पाण्डवश्चैव दिव्यौ शङ्खौ प्रदध्मतुः पाञ्चजन्यं ऋषिकेशो देवदत्तं धनञ्जयः पौण्ड्रं दद्मौ महाशङ्खं भीमकर्मावृकोदरः अनन्तविजयं राजा कुन्तिपुत्रो युधिष्ठिरः नकुलसहदेवश्च सुघोषमणिपुष्पकौ काश्यश्च परमेश्वासः शिखण्डी च महारथः दृष्टद्युम्नो विराटश्च सात्यकिश्चापराजितः द्रुपदो द्रौपदेयाश्च सर्वशः पृथिवीपते सौभद्रश्च महाबाहुः शङ्खान् दद्मुः पृथक् पृथक् सघोषोधार्तराष्ट्राणां हृदयानि व्यदारयत् नभश्च पृथिवीं चैव तूमूलो व्यनुनादयन् अथ व्यवस्थितान् दृष्ट्वा धार्तराष्ट्रान् कपिध्वजः प्रवृत्ते शस्त्रसम्पाते धनुरुद्यम्य पाण्डवः ऋषिकेशं तदा वाक्यम् इदमाह महीपते अर्जुन उवाच सेनयोरुभयोर्मध्ये रथं स्थापयमेच्युतः सेनयोरुभयोर्मध्ये रथं स्थापयमेच्युत यावदेतात्रिरीक्षेऽहं योद्धुकामानवस्थितान् कैर्मया सह योद्धव्यम् अस्मिन् रणसमुद्यमे योत्स्यमानानवेक्षेऽहं य एतेऽत्र समागताः धार्तराष्ट्रस्य दुर्बुद्धेर्युद्धे प्रियचिकीर्षवः सञ्जय उवाच एवमुक्तो ऋषिकेशो गुडाकेशेन भारत सेनयोरुभयोर्मध्ये स्थापयित्वा रथोत्तमम् भीष्मद्रोणप्रमुखतः सर्वेषां च महीक्षिताम् उवाच पार्थ पश्यैतान् समवेतान् कुरुनिति तत्रापश्यत् स्थितान् पार्थः पितॄनथ पितामहान् आचार्यान् मातुलान् भ्रातॄन् पुत्रान् पौत्रान् सखींस्तथा श्वशुरान् सुहृदश्चैव सेनयोरुभयोरपि तान् समीक्ष्य स कौन्तेयः सर्वान् बन्धूनवस्थितान् कृपया परयाविष्टो विषीदत्रिदमब्रवीत् Arjuna
Vish-
uvacha
vi-
drashta
Vishidannidamabravit. That is double na, Bila. Vishidannidamabravit.
Okay, कृपया परयाविष्टो विषीदन्निदमब्रवीत्. धन्यवादः. अर्जुन उवाच दृष्ट्वेमं स्वजनं कृष्ण युयुत्सुं समुपस्थितं सीदन्ति मम गात्राणि मुखं च परिशुष्यति वेपथुश्च शरीरे मे हर्षश्च जायते गाण्डिवं स्त्रंसते हस्तात् त्वक् चैव परिदह्यते न च शक्नोम्यवस्थातुं भ्रमतीव च मे मनः निमित्तानि च पश्यामि विपरीतानि केशव न च श्रेयोनुपश्यामि हत्वा स्वजनमाहवे न काङ्क्षे विजयं कृष्ण न च राज्यं सुखानि च किं नो राज्येन गोविन्द किं भोगैर्जीवितेन वा येषामर्थे काङ्क्षितम्
येषामर्थे काङ्क्षितं नो
येषामर्थे काङ्क्षितं नो राज्यं भोगा सुखानि च त इमेव स्थिता युद्धे प्राणान् त्यक्त्वा धनानि च आचार्याः पितरः पुत्रा तथैव च पितामहाः मातुला स्वशुरा पौत्राः श्याला सम्बन्धिनस्तथा एतान्न हन्तुमिच्छामि घतोऽपि मधुसूदन अपि त्रैलोक्यराज्यस्य हेतो किं नु मही कृते निहत्य धार्तराष्ट्रान् निहत्य धार्तराष्ट्रान्नः का प्रीति स्यार्जनार्दन पापमेवाश्रये दस्मान् हत्वैतानाततायिनः Kindly, Brahmaraji, could you please proceed?
no problem. तस्मान्नार्हा वयं हन्तुं धार्तराष्ट्रान् स्वबान्धवान् स्वजनं हि कथं हत्वा सुखिनः स्याम माधव यद्यप्येतेन पश्यन्ति लोभोपहत चेतसः कुलक्षयकृतं दोषं मित्रद्रोहे च पातकम् कथं न ज्ञेयमस्माभिः पापादस्मान्निवर्तितुं कुलक्षयकृतं दोषं प्रपश्यद्भिर्जनार्दन कुलक्षये प्रणश्यन्ति कुलधर्माः सनातनाः धर्मे नष्टे कुलं कृत्स्नम् अधर्मोऽभिभवत्युता अधर्माभिभवात् कृष्ण प्रदुष्यन्ति कुलस्त्रियः स्त्रीषु दुष्टासु वार्ष्णेया जायते वर्णसङ्करः संकरो नरकायैव कुलघ्नानां कुलस्य च पतन्ति पितरो ह्येषां लुप्तपिण्डोदकक्रियाः दोषैरेतैः कुलघ्नानां वर्णसङ्करकारकैः उत्साद्यन्ते जातिधर्माः कुलधर्माश्च शाश्वताः उत्सन्नकुलधर्माणां मनुष्याणां जनार्दन नरके नियतं वासो भवतीत्यनुशुश्रुमा अहो बत महत्पापं कर्तुं व्यवसिता वयं यद्राज्यसुखलोभेन हन्तुं स्वजनमुद्यताः यदि मामप्रतीकारम् अशस्त्रं शस्त्रपाणयः धार्तराष्ट्रारणे हन्तुं तन्मे क्षेमतरं भवेत् संजय उवाच एवमुक्त्वार्जुनः सङ्ख्ये रथोपस्थ उपाविशत् विसृज्य सशरं चापं शोकसंविघ्नमानसः ॐ तत्सत् इति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे अर्जुनविषादयोगो नाम प्रथमोऽध्यायः। अथ द्वितीयोऽध्यायः सांख्ययोगः। संजय उवाच तं तथा कृपयाविष्टम् अश्रुपूर्णाकुलेक्षणं विषीदन्तमिदं वाक्यम् उवाच मधुसूदनः। श्रीभगवानुवाच कुतस्त्वाकश्मलमिदं विषमे समुपस्थितम् अनार्यजुष्टमस्वर्ग्यम् अकीर्तिकरमर्जुन क्लैब्यं मा स्मगमः पार्थ नैतत्त्वय्युपपद्यते क्षुद्रं हृदय दौर्बल्यं यद्वोत्तिष्ठ परन्तप। अर्जुन उवाच कथं भीष्ममहं सङ्ख्ये द्रोणं च मधुसूदन इषुभिः प्रतियोत्स्यामि पूजार्हा वरिसूदन। गुरून् हत्वा हि महानुभावान् श्रेयो भोक्तुं भैक्ष्यमपीह लोके हत्वार्थकामांस्तु गुरूनिहैव भुञ्जीय भोगान् रुधिरप्रदिग्धान् न चैतद्विद्मः कतरन्नो गरीयो यद्वा जयेम यदि वा नो जयेयुः यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामः तेव स्थिताः प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्राः कार्पण्यदोषोपहतः स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यच्छ्रेयस्यान्निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम् न हि प्रपश्यामि ममापनुद्यात् यच्छोकमुच्छोषणमिन्द्रियाणाम् अवाप्य भूमावसपत्नवृद्धम् राज्यं सुराणामपि चाधिपत्यम्। सञ्जय उवाच एवमुक्त्वा हृषीकेशं गुडाकेशः परन्तप न योत्स्य इति गोविन्दम् उक्त्वा तूष्णीं बभूवः। तमुवाच हृषीकेशः प्रहसन्निव भारत सेनयोरुभयोर्मध्ये विषीदन्तमिदं वचः। श्रीभगवानुवाच अशोच्यानन्वशोचस्त्वं प्रज्ञावादांश्च भाषसे गतासु न गतासूंश्च नानुशोचन्ति पण्डिताः। न त्वेवाहं जातु नासं न त्वं नेमे जनाधिपाः न चैव न भविष्यामः सर्वे वयमतः परम्। देहिनोऽस्मिन् यथा देहे कौमारं यौवनं जरा तथा देहान्तरप्राप्तिः धीरस्तत्र न मुह्यति। मात्रा स्पर्शास्तु कौन्तेय शीतोष्णसुखदुःखदाः आगमापायिनो नित्याः तां स्थितिक्षस्व भारत। यं हि न व्यथयन्त्येते पुरुषं पुरुषर्षभ समदुःखसुखं धीरं सोऽमृतत्वाय कल्पते। नासतो विद्यते भावो नाभावो विद्यते सतः उभयोरपि दृष्टोऽन्तः त्वनयोस्तत्त्वदर्शिभिः। अविनाशि तु तद्विद्धि येन सर्वमिदं ततं विनाशमव्ययस्यास्य न कश्चित् कर्तुमर्हसि न कश्चित् कर्तुमर्हति। अन्तवन्त इमे देहा नित्यस्योक्ता शरीरिणः अनाशिनो प्रमेयस्य तस्माद्युध्यस्व भारत। य एनं वेत्ति हन्तारं यश्चैनं मन्यते हतम् उभौ तौ न विजानीतः नायं हन्ति न हन्यते। न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचित् नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः अजो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणो न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे। वेदा विनाशिनं नित्यं य एनमजमव्ययम् कथं स पुरुषः पार्थ कं घातयति हन्तिकम्। वासांसि जीर्णानि यथा विहाय नवानि गृह्णाति नरोपराणि तथा शरीराणि विहाय जीर्णानि अन्यानि संयाति नवानि देहि। नैनं छिन्दन्ति शस्त्राणि नैनं दहति पावकः न चैनं क्लेदयन्त्यापः न शोषयति मारुतः। अच्छेद्योऽयमदाह्योऽयम् अक्लेद्यो शोष्य एव च नित्यः सर्वगतस्थाणुः अचलोऽयं सनातनः अव्यक्तोऽयमचिन्त्योऽयम् अविकार्योऽयमुच्यते। तस्मादेवं विदित्वैनं नानुशोचितुमर्हसि। अथ चैनं नित्यजातं नित्यं वा मन्यसे मृतम् तथापि त्वं महाबाहो नैवं शोचितुमर्हसि। जातस्य हि ध्रुवो मृत्युः ध्रुवं जन्म मृतस्य च तस्मादपरिहार्येथे न त्वं शोचितुमर्हसि।
सॉरी ब्रह्मराज जी, एक
अव्यक्त
स्टन
या
एक मिस हो गया, छोटा सा
ओ
स्टैंजा।
इज इट। अथ चैनं नित्यजातं नित्यं वा मन्यसे मृतं तथापि त्वं महाबाहो नैवं शोचितुमर्हसि। जातस्य हि ध्रुवो मृत्युः ध्रुवं जन्म मृतस्य च तस्मादपरिहार्येथे न त्वं शोचितुमर्हसि। अव्यक्तादीनि भूतानि व्यक्तमध्यानि भारत अव्यक्तनिधनान्येव तत्र का परिदेवना। आश्चर्यवत् पश्यति कश्चिदेनम् आश्चर्यवत् वदति तथैव चान्यः आश्चर्यवच्चैनमन्यः शृणोति श्रुत्वाप्येनं वेद न चैव कश्चित्। देहि नित्यमवध्योऽयं देहे सर्वस्य भारत तस्मात् सर्वाणि भूतानि न त्वं शोचितुमर्हसि। स्वधर्ममपि चावेक्ष न विकम्पितुमर्हसि। धर्माद्धियुद्धात् श्रेयोऽन्यत् क्षत्रियस्य न विद्यते। यदृच्छया चोपपन्नं स्वर्गद्वारमपावृतं सुखिनः क्षत्रियाः पार्थ लभन्ते युद्धमीदृशम्। अथ चेत्त्वमिमं धर्म्यं सङ्ग्रामं न करिष्यसि ततः स्वधर्मं कीर्तिं च हित्वा पापमवाप्स्यसि। अकीर्तिं चापि भूतानि कथयिष्यन्ति ते व्ययाम् सम्भावितस्य चाकीर्तिः मरणादतिरिच्यते। मरणादतिरिच्यते भयाद्रणादुपरतं मन्स्यन्ते त्वां महारथाः येषां च त्वं बहुमतः भूत्वा यास्यसि लाघवम्। अवाच्य वादांश्च बहून् वदिष्यन्ति तवाहिताः निन्दन्तस्तव सामर्थ्यं ततो दुःखतरं नु किम्। हतो वा प्राप्स्यसि स्वर्गं जित्वा वा भोक्ष्यसे महीम् तस्मादुत्तिष्ठ कौन्तेय युद्धाय कृतनिश्चयः। सुखदुःखे समे कृत्वा लाभालाभौ जयाजयौ ततो युद्धाय युज्यस्व नैवं पापमवाप्स्यसि। एषा ते विहिता साङ्ख्ये बुद्धिर्योगे त्विमां शृणु बुद्ध्या युक्तो यया पार्थ कर्मबन्धं प्रहास्यसि। नेहाभिक्रमनाशोऽस्ति प्रत्यवायो न विद्यते स्वल्पमप्यस्य धर्मस्य त्रायते महतो भयात्। व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिः एकेह कुरु नन्दन बहुशाखा ह्यनन्ताश्च बुद्धयो व्यवसायिनाम् यामिमां पुष्पितां वाचं प्रवदन्त्यविपश्चितः वेदवादरताः पार्थ नान्यदस्तीति वादिनः कामात्मानः स्वर्गपराः जन्मकर्मफलप्रदां क्रियाविशेषबहुलां भोगैश्वर्यगतिं प्रति भोगैश्वर्यप्रसक्तानां तयापहृतचेतसां व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिः समाधौ न विधीयते त्रैगुण्यविषया वेदा निस्त्रैगुण्यो भवार्जुन निर्द्वन्द्वो नित्यसत्त्वस्थः निर्योगक्षेम आत्मवान् यावानर्थ उदपाने सर्वतः सम्प्लुतोदके तावान् सर्वेषु वेदेषु ब्राह्मणस्य विजानतः कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्मफलहेतुर्भूः मा ते सङ्गोऽस्त्वकर्मणि योगस्थः कुरु कर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा धनञ्जय सिद्ध्यसिद्ध्यो समो भूत्वा समत्वं योग उच्यते यतः प्रवृत्तिर्भूतानां येन सर्वमिदं ततं स्वकर्मणा तमभ्यर्च्य सिद्धिं विन्दति मानवः दूरेण ह्यवरं कर्म बुद्धियोगात् धनञ्जय बुद्धौ शरणमन्विच्छ कृपणाः फलहेतवः बुद्धियुक्तो जहातीह उभे सुकृतदुष्कृते तस्माद् योगाय युज्यस्व योगः कर्मसु कौशलम् कर्मजं बुद्धियुक्ता हि फलं त्यक्त्वा मनीषिणः जन्मबन्धविनिर्मुक्ताः पदं गच्छन्त्यनामयम् यदा ते मोहकलिलं बुद्धिर्व्यतितरिष्यति तदा गन्तासि निर्वेदं श्रोतव्यस्य श्रुतस्य च श्रुतिविप्रतिपन्ना ते यदा स्थास्यसि निश्चला समाधावचला बुद्धिः तदा योगमवाप्स्यसि अर्जुन उवाच स्थितप्रज्ञस्य का भाषा समाधिस्तस्य केशव स्थितधीः किं प्रभाषेत किमासीत व्रजेत किम् श्रीभगवानुवाच प्रजहाति यदा कामान् सर्वान् पार्थमनोगतान् आत्मन्येवात्मना तुष्टः स्थितप्रज्ञस्तदोच्यते दुःखेष्वनुद्विग्नमनाः सुखेषु विगतस्पृहः वीतरागभयक्रोधः स्थितधीर्मुनिरुच्यते यः सर्वत्रानभिस्नेहः तत्तत्प्राप्य शुभाशुभम् नाभिनन्दति न द्वेष्टि तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता यदा संहरते चायं कूर्मोऽङ्गानीव सर्वशः इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेभ्यः तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता विषया विनिवर्तन्ते निराहारस्य देहिनः रसवर्जं रसोऽप्यस्य परं दृष्ट्वा निवर्तते यततो ह्यपि कौन्तेय पुरुषस्य विपश्चितः इन्द्रियाणि प्रमाथीनि हरन्ति प्रसभं मनः तानि सर्वाणि संयम्य युक्त आसीत मत्परः वशे हि यस्येन्द्रियाणि तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसः सङ्गस्तेषूपजायते सङ्गात् सञ्जायते कामः कामात् क्रोधोऽभिजायते क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः सम्मोहात् स्मृतिविभ्रमः स्मृतिभ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशः बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति रागद्वेषवियुक्तैस्तु विषयानिन्द्रियैश्चरन् आत्मवश्यैर्विधेयात्मा प्रसादमधिगच्छति प्रसादे सर्वदुःखानां हानिरस्योपजायते प्रसन्नचेतसो ह्याशुः बुद्धिः पर्यवतिष्ठते नास्ति बुद्धिरयुक्तस्य न चायुक्तस्य भावना न चाभावयतः शान्तिः अशान्तस्य कुतः सुखम् इन्द्रियाणां हि चरतां यन्मनोनुविधीयते तदस्य हरति प्रज्ञां वायुर्नावमिवाम्भसि तस्माद्यस्य महाबाहो निगृहीतानि सर्वशः इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेभ्यः तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता या निशा सर्वभूतानां तस्यां जागर्ति संयमी यस्यां जाग्रति भूतानि सा निशा पश्यतो मुनेः आपूर्यमाणमचलप्रतिष्ठं समुद्रमापः प्रविशन्ति यद्वत् तद्वत् कामायं प्रविशन्ति सर्वे स शान्तिमाप्नोति न कामकामी विहाय कामान्यः सर्वान् पुमांश्चरति निःस्पृहः निर्ममो निरहङ्कारः स शान्तिमधिगच्छति एषा ब्राह्मी स्थितिः पार्थ नैनां प्राप्य विमुह्यति स्थित्वा स्यामन्तकालेऽपि ब्रह्मनिर्वाणमृच्छति ॐ तत्सत् इति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे सांख्ययोगो नाम द्वितीयोऽध्यायः अथ तृतीयोऽध्यायः कर्मयोगः अर्जुन उवाच जायसि चेत् कर्मणस्ते मता बुद्धिर्जनार्दन तत्किं कर्मणि घोरे मां नियोजयसि केशव That's it. We'll continue
Brahmaraj,
tomorrow.
okay.
What is it, Bela?
No, please let me know if you, if we can chant.
No, I think we'll stop here today. We'll continue chapter 3 and 4 tomorrow. We'll do 2 chapters every day.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Jai Gurudev.
Jai
Om
Gurudev.
Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sarvam Shri Krishnarpanamastu. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev.
Dhanyavad.